Good morning, everybody. Good morning from San Diego. This is the Neuroscience Gateway using Neuron and EEG Lab webinar. I'm Amit Majumdar from San Diego Supercomputer Center at University of California, San Diego. And I have my colleagues, Shubha Sivanyanam and Kenneth Yoshimoto, as well as many of other speakers and colleagues. So just a quick information about the agenda. You may have seen it already. I will do a very high level quick intro of NSG. Then Shubha will demo how to use NSG via portal and programmatic REST access. Ted Carnivale from Yale University will talk about Neuron and how to use Neuron using NSG. Hopefully we will have a short break. Then Arno from Schwartz Center for Computation and Neuroscience at UCSD will talk about EEG Lab and how to use EEG Lab, and then we will have a question answer session. As you know, the meeting is being recorded. We will make the recording available after a couple of weeks. Just so that you know, if you got a question, you just type it in the QA box. That's the only way you can communicate with us, since there are many of you, only few of us. And we will try to answer either over the QA text box or audio. And if you have questions in the future, please email nsghelp@sdsc.edu. So the Neuroscience Gateway is a primarily web-based science gateway that allows many neuroscience modeling and data processing tools to run on high performance and high throughput computing resources. It is free and open to any academic and non-profit researchers from any country pretty much. And given that it's free and open, and given that someone needs access to high performance computing for modeling and data processing, it allows everyone to use those resources for research and education. So as I said, the Neuroscience Gateway provides access through a web-based interface, the browser interface, or for more sophisticated users, programmatic access. And the main users of NSG are individual neuroscientists, graduate student, postdoc researchers, like all of you listening today. But there are some projects, community neuroscience projects, who can also send their computation to NSG. I will mention it later. So we have many supercomputers, academic supercomputers, that are available in the US and coordinated by a virtual organization called Exceed that provides the supercomputing power at the back end of NSG at various sites such as Comet and Expand Supercomputer at our center at SDSC at UCSD. But we also have machines at other centers at University of Texas, Indiana University, Pittsburgh Supercomputer Center. A new neuromorphic computing design at UCSD will become available to NSG also. In the year of 2019 and 2020, the US National Science Foundation has funded multiple new supercomputers at various sites. Over time, we hope NSG will have access to those machines also, including machines that are focused on AI research. So NSG provides various neuroscience modeling and data processing software. Initially, when we started in 2013, it was primarily computational neuroscience software, such as Neuron, Genesis, Brian. Over time, more and more cognitive neuroscientists and experimental neuroscientists have started using NSG. So you can see, MATLAB, EEG Lab, FreeSurfer, and then more data processing like R, Python, and then even machine learning tools like TensorFlow were made available. Usually we listen to users and provide neuroscience software that are robust, have a good user base, and do need high performance computing. If some software is not used or not supported, we retire those. Just to show how NSG has grown over the last 7 or 8 years, if you look at the plot on the top right, you will see how much supercomputing time we have acquired each year starting 2013. You can see initially we were getting few 100,000 hours. Then over time, in the last few years, we are kind of settling at 12 to 13 million core hours on various supercomputers. And then if you look at the plot on the bottom left, you will see the number of users of NSG has also grown during that time, starting with about 100 users initially in 2013. Now we have about 1,200 users. So that's a good balance of requiring more computing time, having more users, and the number of publications and posters and presentations and MS thesis work using NSG has also grown. I think those numbers are not very accurate. My guess is the numbers are more than what's reported here, because we request you, when you use NSG, to please let us know your publications, as that is very important. Now, to give you a little bit background information about NSG, getting an account on NSG is very easy. You go to the web page and just fill in your institution, etc. information, and within a day or two, you will get an account. But the question is, how does the supercomputer time comes, given it's free and open to everyone? What happens is the NSG team writes a allocation proposal every year on behalf of the neuroscience community, that is all of you, to get time on these various supercomputers in the US. That allocation proposal goes through a rigorous peer review process, because many disciplines, from physics to engineering to social science to geoscience, everybody compete for the supercomputer time. But we have been successful to get time, and once we receive the time for a 12-month period, we try to manage the time for users like yourself in the best way possible. If someone needs more time, we work with him or her. But if one person started using a lot of time, we have to ask that person to slow down so we have enough time for all the users for the whole year. And then to get time for the next year in our allocation proposal, we have to show that we have pretty much used all the time. If we have unused time, that doesn't look good. So as number of users increase and more neuroscience software we make available, you let us know about your publications. All this information go in the next year's proposal. So another thing is, if a US-based researcher, say suddenly himself or herself needs 5 million core hours, we cannot provide that to that researcher, because that will be half of what we have for the whole community. We can work with that researcher, for the US-based researcher, to have her or him write their own allocation proposal. And once they get time for their own research, they can still use NSG. At the back end, they will be charging to their own allocation. Here I want to talk about two computers, supercomputers that NSG uses. You don't need to worry about all the numbers that I have here. You will see the point I'm trying to make. So Comet is the current supercomputer that NSG has access to, and it will retire in March 2021 as an NSF supercomputer. You see on the left some system configuration of Comet. But the main point I want to mention is each node on Comet has 24 cores and 128 gigabyte of memory. So per core, there is over 5 gigabyte of memory. But if you look at the Expand supercomputer, which is just becoming available to NSG and to the US academic community, it will operate for 5 more years. It has 128 cores and 256 gigabyte of memory. So per core memory is almost less than 2 gigabyte. So the main message is, in the future, as Expanse becomes available to NSG, for many of the neuroscience software, you will have to specify how much memory you need, because multiple jobs, one could be the NSG neuroscience job, another could be a engineering users running a computational fluid dynamics job, will share the node. As long as you mention how much memory you need, our scheduler will schedule the jobs appropriately. So I mentioned that NSG is primarily used by individual users like all of you here, hopefully, but there are some big projects, neuroscience projects, just like the open source brain, which is well known among computational modeling neuroscientists. They send their large scale computing jobs to NSG. So a open source brain researcher may not even know that his or her job is running at San Diego Supercomputer Center. Open source brain is managed by researcher Parik Gleason and Professor Angel Silver in University College London. And we also work with underrepresented institutions. So here is one example. HSI STEM is a group of multiple HSI universities, and we do interaction and collaboration with them to see how they can use NSG for education, outreach, and training. We also have research experience for high school students. I will talk about it later. So just to give an idea of how NSG has been evolving, because the research and computing need of neuroscientists is also evolving. Initially, as I mentioned, in 2013, it was mostly computation and neuroscience tools that were provided on high performance computing resources, that is kind of large supercomputers. But over time, more and more cognitive neuroscientists and experimental neuroscientists started using NSG, and they process lots of data, but in a single core or single node. Hence, high throughput computing is what needed for them, more than high performance computing needed for computational neuroscientists, as well as various large data transfer, data sharing, data access by multiple users. So these are the new features that NSG is starting to provide as more users from data science side join NSG. There are more and more training and workshops happening using NSG in recent years. And another thing we found from the community is that some of you are developing neuroscience software and you want NSG to be a dissemination platform for neuroscience software. So that's another angle NSG is taking in the coming years. So just to show you our pictures how NSG is evolving. On the left, you see the original NSG, which has both web-based and programmatic access. And you can see under compute resources on the left, under original NSG banner, it says HPC because it was for computational neuroscientists. Now, if you go to the evolving NSG picture, you will see that we are providing or trying to serve the experimental and cognitive neuroscientists who do a lot of data processing on using high throughput computing of open science grid, commercial crowd, as well as ability to transfer data. And then you see the tool developers and tool development environment, which means we are trying to make NSG a platform for tool dissemination also. And on the bottom, you see a EEG focus project. It's called NEMAR, Neuroelectromagnetic Data Archive and Tools Resource, funded by NIH, where primarily initially EEG data, bits formatted, which are uploaded to the Open Neuro project of Russ Poldrack, will be brought down to San Diego Supercomputer Center storage. And at the back end, it will connect with NSG for compute. But for easy researchers through the NEMAR web interface, they will be able to look at the data, search the data, visualize the data, do more kind of processing across data, meta-analysis, and all of this. I want to show some of the usage characteristics of NSG. So on the top left, there are a lot of numbers, but I will just explain. On the top left, you see the maximum core count job that has been run on NSG on various supercomputers in the last year. And you can see the trend line is saying, almost about 10,000 core jobs for computation neuroscientists. On the bottom right is the same plot, except from the beginning of NSG, like January 2013 till now. You can see a lot of large core count jobs were run, primarily by computation neuroscientists. So this is for maximum core count job. Here I have the same plots on the top left and the right bottom, but except for minimum core count jobs. So you can see there are few core count jobs, 10 or so or 5. So this means over time, more and more data scientists, cognitive neuroscientists have been doing single core or few core jobs of processing their data. So this is good. This shows that more and more cognitive neuroscientists join over the last few years. And the plots before show that computation neuroscientists has been running bigger and bigger models. This shows the number of jobs that ran on NSG since January 2013. You can see some years, or some months, there were 70,000 jobs run, but typically few thousand jobs run a month. So to summarize, NSG is free and open. We provide neuroscience software for both modeling and high throughput computing for data processing. NSG is trying to be a software dissemination platform. We have many workshops and training, but the last two bullets are very important for us. If you use NSG for your work, please cite this paper in your presentation, publication, MS, PhD thesis work. And if you publish, present, or use it for MS, PhD, please send us email and let us know. These are very important for us to collect because we use that to get next year, millions of hours supercomputer time for all of you, and also to write funding proposal to keep NSG going. So we have many collaborators. I mentioned the one that are directly involved with NSG, Shubha, Kenneth, Marty, Steven, and me from UCSD, and Ted from Yale University, as well as we have many other collaborators, Scott McGee, Arno, who will speak, Ramon Martinez, and Young Trung, as well as Gart Kauenberg at UCSD. Here I show two undergraduate students who did summer internship in 2013. They are now, they were high school students then, now they're undergraduate student at Gonzaga and UCLA. And we have multiple grants from NIH, NIBIB, and NIMH, as well as from NSF on various projects that I already talked about. And we have the advisory board of Maxim Baznev, Dieter Yeager, Stephanie Jones, Bill Litton, and Vinod Menon. Thank you.